It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Choi. Let us begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye is set to attend a series of multilateral summits next month in Russia, China, and Laos. North Korea officially confirms it's resumed its production of weapons-grade plutonium in violation of UN resolutions. South Korea prepares its response. After days of disappointments in Rio, Team Korea grabs Olympic gold in women's taekwondo and puts on a fine display in women's golf. South Korea is mulling its next steps after North Korea told the Japanese news agency that it has resumed the production of weapons-grade plutonium. Seoul's foreign ministry expressed its concern over the move and urged Pyongyang to stop its nuclear activities immediately. Kwon So-hwa has our top story.
A clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea. That's how Seoul's foreign ministry responded to Pyongyang's latest statement on its nuclear program. The ministry spokesman said Thursday the North's assertion that it has resumed producing plutonium, the key ingredient for making nuclear weapons, goes against global peace, security, and the international commitment to non-proliferation.
North Korea must realize that the international community will not tolerate any kind of nuclear possession by the regime. We strongly urge North Korea to immediately halt any nuclear-related activity in accordance with UN Security Council resolutions.
The South Korean government says it will discuss countermeasures with related countries and international agencies to enforce the pressure put on Pyongyang through the toughest international sanctions on the regime to date. Tokyo-based Kyodo News Agency reported Wednesday that North Korea's Atomic Energy Institute said through a rare reply to a written interview that it will continue with its nuclear tests as long as it feels threatened by the United States and its nuclear arsenal. North Korea's intent to resume production of weapons-grade plutonium is nothing new. But this is the first time since it vowed to restart its Yongbyon nuclear facility in 2013 that Pyongyang has officially confirmed that reprocessing is taking place. The International Atomic Energy Agency said in June that North Korea appears to have started to reprocess plutonium at the complex's 5-megawatt reactor. Pyongyang conducted its fourth nuclear test in January this year. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
And we have more details on the latest North Korean defection. The diplomat who fled his post in London and arrived in South Korea is not only the highest-ranking diplomat to defect, he is also a member of the regime's upper elite class. According to our Connie Kim, the incident is likely to have a huge impact on Pyongyang.
The defection of Tae Yong-ho, North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UK with his family, has raised eyebrows. Not only is he the highest-ranking North Korean diplomat to seek asylum in the South, he's also a member of North Korea's upper class, which makes his flight even more rare. A source well acquainted with North Korea said Thursday Tae's father, Tae Byung-yeol, was one of the people who engaged in anti-Japanese activities during the Kim Il-sung era. He was also a member of the North Korean Workers' Party Central Committee, and his brother is the president of Kim Il-sung University. When Tae was in high school, he was reportedly sent to China to study Chinese and English. Tae's wife, Oh Hae-sun, is reportedly also a member of North Korea's elite. Her father, Oh Baek-yong, was said to have engaged in anti-Japanese activities, and her two brothers are government and military officials. Tae was scheduled to return to Pyongyang this summer, but sources say he may have fled due to fears he would be questioned over the UK's criticism of North Korea's human rights abuses, as well as a desire for his son to be educated outside of North Korea. Seoul's Unification Ministry confirmed Tae's defection Wednesday, saying his defection was motivated in part by his disillusionment with the Kim Jong-un regime. The ministry also said the case reflects the growing instability in the regime. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korean President Park Geun-hye is set to begin another long diplomacy tour next month. She'll attend a series of multilateral meetings in Russia, China, and Laos, including the G20 and the ASEAN +3 summit. Song Ji-sun has our full itinerary.
President Park Geun-hye's week-long trip will start in Vladivostok, Russia, where she'll address the Eastern Economic Forum and sit down with Russian President Vladimir Putin on September 3rd. President Park will then take off to Hangzhou, China for the G20 summit, where world leaders will gather to discuss ways to make a more innovative, interconnected, and inclusive global economy. A summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping has not yet been confirmed, but during her two-day visit, President Gov't will likely call for global cooperation in reining in North Korea's threats, while seeking understanding for Seoul and Washington's decision to deploy the U.S. missile defense system THAAD against those threats, as Beijing and Moscow have both expressed opposition to the decision.
If it weren't for North Korea's ever-increasing nuclear and missile threats, it would never have been necessary to make the decision to deploy THAAD. Before criticizing our purely defensive measure, Beijing should call out Pyongyang for violating peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia.
President Bak's focus will shift to business as she lands in Laotian capital Vientiane, where she'll seek to strengthen South Korea's strategic partnership with Southeast Asian countries. Seoul will take part in the ASEAN +3 summit, which includes Korea, China, and Japan, followed by the East Asia Summit. President Gov't will continue her official visit to Laos, with the summit focused on revving up the bilateral partnership and boosting trade.
보호무역주의와 신고립주의 극복을 이끌어가는 선도 국가가 되어야 합니다. 다자, 양자 간 외교와 협상의 틀 안에서 대외 지향과 개방에 최선을 다해주기 바랍니다.
During her trip, President Gov't will seek to take a leading role on the diplomatic, economic, and security fronts in order to foster mutual growth and prosperity in the region. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스.
The drought is over for Team South Korea. 2 medals coming from Taekwondo, including a gold in the women's event in day 12 of the Olympics. The results, the record breakers, and some heartbreaks in Rio. Here's Vientiane.
Ending the country's medal drought with 2 in Taekwondo, Wednesday was the day Team Korea was waiting for. The biggest thrill of the day was Kim So-hee's gold in women's tournament. In the final match in the 49-kilo category, the 2-time world champion took on Tijana Bogdanovic of Serbia. In one of her signature moves, Kim scored 3 points in the second round with an impressive turning kick to the head. After the victory, the 22-year-old said that, more than anything, she was happy to keep the promise she made to her parents, that the decoration she was going to deliver home was going to be a golden one. And on the men's side, Team Korea's 2-time world champion Kim Tae-woon won a bronze in the men's 58-kilo category. To the surprise of many, Kim got knocked out in the round of 16, 12-10 by his Thai opponent. But proving his resilience, which also happens to be an important principle of the martial art, he came back stronger in the repechage, which allowed him to move on in the competition even though he had come in just below the qualifying score, beating Mexico's Carlos Navarro 7-5. Day 12 also saw the return of a sport that has been absent from the Olympics for more than a century, golf. After the first round, Team Korea's Park In-bi, the world number 5, is second on a 5-under par 66. She's only 1 shot behind the leader from Thailand and tied with world number 6, Kim Se-young. Though the other 2 female golfers from Korea are way down the field at the moment, hopes are high Team Korea will scoop at least a couple of medals in the sport. Meanwhile, the host country has sealed a spot in the final of the men's football. Brazil cruised past Honduras 6-0 and is now set to play Germany in the final on Saturday. In athletics, Kenya's Conseslus Kipruto claimed gold in the 3,000-meter steeplechase and set an Olympic record of 8 minutes 3.28 seconds. The country has now won every gold in the event since 1968, having boycotted the 1976 and 1980 Olympics for political reasons. Some lost, some claimed medals, and some broke records on day 12, keeping the thrill alive as we head into the last 4 days of the Games. 이은신, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea's political parties are still debating the government's proposed budget supplement, meaning Parliament could fail to meet its original goal of passing the bill by Monday. Park Ji-won has the latest from the domestic political arena.
The ruling Saenuri party is urging the opposition to move forward with deliberations on the government's extra budget plan. On Thursday, the party sought to remind the opposition of their agreement to vote on the budget first and then hold two parliamentary hearings on the government's corporate restructuring drive, targeting the ailing shipping and shipbuilding industries, outlays for which account for the largest portion of the roughly $9.7 billion plan.
I once again sincerely urge the opposition parties not to block the agreement to pass the supplementary budget bill by August 22nd.
The main opposition Minju and People's Party say they cannot approve the budget plan unless the Saenuri party agrees to summon key economic policymakers as witnesses at the hearings. The list includes former Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, current Senior Presidential Secretary for Policy Coordination An Jong-bom, and Hong Ki-taek, the former chairman of the state-run Korea Development Bank. Last October, they allegedly held a secret meeting at the presidential office and decided to inject some $3.8 billion into the already ailing Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering.
We simply cannot let just a few people decide how to spend taxpayers' money as if it were their own, without anyone taking responsibility for such a big loss. It's the Parliament's duty to disclose problems so that such problems never happen again.
The ruling party has refused to accept the economic policy chiefs as witnesses. It says this round of hearings is not meant to go as deep as those scheduled for later in the year, and the opposition is just politicizing economic matters. If there's no vote on the supplementary budget, the government and the ruling party are said to be considering a Plan B, whereby the funds would be included in next year's government budget proposal. In other business, the Parliament held a confirmation hearing for Supreme Court Justice nominee Kim Jae-hyung on Thursday, and there's a hearing for National Police Agency Chief nominee Lee Chul-sung on Friday. Hearings for 3 ministers appointed this week are expected early next month. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Staying in the nation, the government and the ruling Saenuri party have launched a 13-member task force to reform Korea's decades-old electricity billing system. The two agreed the task force will meet on a monthly basis to craft a reasonable solution for improving the current progressive billing scheme by the year's end. The team plans to study pricing systems in other countries, especially those with similar electricity usage conditions like Japan. They'll also hold public hearings on how to overhaul the system, including the pricing for household and industrial use. Currently, the scheme doesn't apply to industries, which account for over half of the country's energy consumption. Representative Lee Chae-ik, who is co-chairing the task force, said he would be willing to work with the opposition parties on the reforms as well. Turning to some stock market action now, shares of Samsung Electronics hit a new high on Thursday after the tech titan reported its best quarterly profit in over 2 years. Samsung's share price jumped 4.7% to close at about $1,480 thanks to strong sales of its flagship Galaxy S7 smartphones. Industry insiders predict Samsung Electronics will post an operating profit of more than $27 billion this year. Korea's main index as a whole also edged up, helped by Samsung shares and eased worries about a possible rate hike by the U.S. Fed. The benchmark Kospi was up a little over 0.5% to close at 22.55. The won closed at 1,107 against the greenback. Korea's startup companies are doing relatively well selling their products and services to overseas markets. Welcome news, as the country's overall outbound shipments have been sagging due to the global economic slowdown. Our Kim Min-ji looks into the numbers.
Despite Korea's exports falling for a record 19 straight months, the country's startups are offering a glint of light. According to the Korea International Trade Association, exports by startup companies came to nearly $10 billion as of the end of July this year, up 0.8% from a year ago. In July alone, exports rose 1.7% on-year, marking the third straight monthly rise. That's in stark contrast to the country's overall exports that have posted sharp declines. In fact, startup exports have outpaced those of all firms combined in recent years. In 2014, outbound shipments by startups rose 9.5%, while those of all companies edged up just 2.3%. Last year, startups saw their exports jump 2.5%, while overall companies saw exports decline 8%. The rise in exports of startups was attributed to increased shipments to the United States and Vietnam. Outbound shipments to the U.S. rose 5% thanks to a general economic pickup there, while exports to Vietnam jumped 11% as many Korean companies have their production bases located in the Southeast Asian country. Exports to Japan also soared 16.5%. The gains were led by key products such as semiconductors and mobile communication devices, which rose 7.6% and 23% respectively. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
That concludes our newscast for this hour. As always, thank you for watching.